if I could just drop the last 5 pounds. This is a common statement that we hear from a lot of our clients, either inquiring about nutrition counseling, seeing us in our practice, as well as in my Pursuit of Healthiness online nutrition course that I facilitate. And in this video, I'm going to dive into this whole concept of how to lose the last stubborn 5 pounds. I'm also going to cover whether this is even necessary or possible once we get closer to that set point or that weight our body just kind of likes to hang out at. So join me. I'm Andrea Hallwegner, registered dietitian and CEO of Health Stand Nutrition, and we're diving right into this concept around weight management, or in our practice, as we like to refer to it as, how to help people achieve their personal best weight. And sometimes the number that we want to be is a little different than where our body wants to be. But I'm committed to helping people just really learn a little bit more about the science of weight management and also move them towards achieving those better results, assuming it is indeed possible. So let's dive right in here. A couple of things that I want to get to right out of the gates here is I want to talk a little bit about why are the last few pounds, as we get closer to where we want to be or our body might like to naturally hang out at, why is it as we get closer there, does it get that much harder? And when we think about the science of overall weight management, our body really does have a set point or a place that it wants to be. And really trying to move it much lower than that, our body is fighting us all the steps of the way. And it fights us based on biology, based on our genetics, our hormones. And then of course, it fights us both psychologically as well, because none of us want to feel deprived. And sometimes as we try to reduce our intake further, we try to exercise more, it just becomes that much more difficult psychologically because it's harder. We notice changes in our appetite and our hunger cues. And a lot of us, we're wired to be very habitual in what we do. So if you've been eating a certain way or even active in a certain level for a long time, it can be very difficult to want to change that behavior. And then of course, we've got an environment that is set up to have us thinking and worrying about food and probably conditioning us to feel like we should be doing more from an exercise standpoint. And all of that makes these last few pounds that much more difficult. So the closer you get again to that natural set point, to where your body wants to hang out, usually the harder it is going to be. And there's not necessarily any quick fix way that we can kick the body out of that place. But if you do have obviously poor lifestyle habits, or if you have a significant amount of weight to lose, we tend to find that, yes, weight loss does tend to be a little bit easier. But as you work your way down, plateaus are very common, and also just the body really fighting, losing a significant amount is also going to be part of what we tend to see in both weight management and obesity-based research. So that is the not so good news. We get what we get and we can't get upset, as one of my sons, I think preschool teacher once told him, which I thought was a great line. Harder to accept though, absolutely. So I want to dive into the question, is changing your nutrition the best way that you can lose those final 5 pounds? And it may or may not be, is the answer to that question. And it all comes down to how much room your diet has to actually shift nutritional change. We meet a lot of people that have oodles of places that we could work on to help them around their nutrition changes, and making any small number of changes definitely helps them move forward with weight loss. On the other hand, we tend to see a lot of people as well that are actually already eating really well and actually trying to reduce the volume of food or put more limitations on what they're eating only is going to literally spin them into a state of deprivation and definitely more of a diet-based mindset, which at Health Stand Nutrition here is not what we want to set people up for. We want to use a non-dieting approach. We want to use an all foods can fit approach to not only achieving good health and energy, but living your best life when it comes to your approach to weight management. So the best sort of thing to think about if you're trying to sort out, well, is there room or is there not room when it comes to nutrition? I mean, of course you can come and see a registered dietitian. One-on-one is going to be the best way to go about it so that the information is really customized specific to you. So you want an experienced registered dietitian that has that good science background of all the research going on around weight management, but also someone that's worked a lot around the topics such as emotional eating. Menopause tends to be a big challenge for a lot of our clients. So someone that's got expertise in working with a good volume of clients around weight management, menopause, and just, nutrition as we get into our 40s, 50s, 60s is just harder when we approach weight loss in general. So of course you could hire a dietitian. If you're not ready for that or not even convinced you need to go that route, the first step that I'd encourage you to think about is pull out a piece of paper, not your phone, not an app, not a fancy whiz-bang technological solution, but I'd pull out a pen and a paper and I'd keep yourself a journal for a good week of everything you're eating. And I'd like you to be honest and I'd like you to think about not changing anything significant over the next week, but use this as not a chance to beat yourself up or nitpick whether you should or shouldn't have something or change what you're eating, but really use it as a self-awareness tool to see where are you starting out. And oftentimes we already get a sense for maybe some of the things that we possibly could change in just simply being aware of what our habits look like. What we've noticed here in our team of dietitians is if we asked a client, what did you eat yesterday? People struggle to remember, or people can tell us too meticulously about exact morsels of every little bite they've taken over the course of the last week. And both of those present some challenges. Of course, if we have no awareness and no memory of what we're eating, this is probably meaning there's going to be some room for nutrition change there. On the other perspective, if you meticulously could tell me last Wednesday what you ate down to the calorie and the gram of carb or fat or protein, I would suggest we want to try and work with you on shifting that relationship with food so it doesn't feel so strained and calculated. Because what we've noticed is when eating becomes very, very meticulously tracked like that, we tend to find that it steals away a lot of the joy. And sometimes with that, we notice that that actually will lead to overconsumption because you're feeling so deprived. So best way, again, pull out a journal and see if you seriously stood back and looked at it, could you make some changes in your overall eating pattern without it feeling depriving, without it feeling super unsustainable? But what do you see if you look at the last week of what you're consuming? Is there room for overall improvement? And if you're not sure, then this is a good time to connect one-on-one with an experienced dietitian that specializes in weight management. So next sort of piece here, assuming your nutrition looks like it's, probably got some places you could work on, the next question becomes, well, where do you begin? Because not all changes matter equally. So we know that some things are going to give you more bang for sort of results than other things. So a couple of things to sort of begin exploring around your nutrition. The best strategy is to focus on one of two things. The first thing is, could you make changes to the types of food you're eating? And the second one is, could you make changes to the amount of food that you're eating? So I want to talk about the first one here. So when we're thinking about the types of food you're eating, what I'd encourage you to think about here is if you were having me come over to your house and we were to sit in your kitchen and look at things together, not in a judging, shaming perspective, but in a what do we see, would you be necessarily proud about the items that are in your pantry, in your refrigerator? Do we have a lot of fresh, quality, high nutritional types of foods? Or are we seeing a huge amount of reliance on packaged processed foods with lots of extra stuff that maybe your grandparents wouldn't even recognize as food? So if I was to sit with you at your kitchen, if I was to sort of shadow you all through your day in your breakfast, lunches, suppers, and snacks, if I was to travel with you to pick up kids in your car, or if I was traveling with you on your way to work or at work over a lunch meeting, what would I see? And what would you suggest might be your best choices and which ones maybe need a little bit of room for improvement? And from our experience, what we see here is it's the busier we get, the more nutrition tends to slide. So sometimes it's not even that you intentionally want to eat those things, it's the busyness of life allows us to maybe not plan ahead as well as we could, or take shortcuts in some of our choices in meal planning and eating out types of choices. And then, of course, when we think about why we eat what we eat, we get into the whole range of cravings management and emotional-based eating that is really common for the vast majority of clients that we serve here at HealthSTEM Nutrition. So just take a broad look and ask yourself, okay, could I make changes to the types of food that I'm eating? Is there anything in there that would be easier to begin with? I wouldn't pick maybe your hardest thing that you know is going to be doomed for failure tomorrow, because it's going to take some extra work and strategies to navigate there. But where are the sort of easiest low-hanging fruit of options that might be the things that you could shift right out of the gates? And again, if you're not really sure, then this is an awesome time to seek out some one-on-one counseling from a dietitian. So one of the things to remember is that we're not looking for perfection here. So people get stressed when we think about, oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of desserts or savory things or eating out with my kids, whatever happened. When you start to think about the types of food you're eating, we're never after trying to eat perfectly. I don't eat perfectly, and neither do any of the dietitians on our team here. In fact, that would be considered obsessive and probably grounds for not some other nutritional challenges, because you're just not allowing enough fun and flexibility into your intake. But I'm willing to bet there's some habits in there that probably would be some good places to begin, such as really what you're stashing in your cupboards at home, your car, at your workplace, that might need to just be cleaned up a little bit to encourage you to make those healthier choices. So remember, you don't need to be perfect, but take a hard look at your patterns and your choices and see, is there some beginning place that you could start to see if you could make changes in the type of food that you're eating. So that's the first part, is the type of foods. The second piece is, could you make changes to the amount of food that you're eating? So chances are, if you're a good eater already and you say, Andrea, I've got lots of healthy choices, I eat really good food, I cook from scratch, I make good choices. If you're thinking about how to lose this last stubborn 5 pounds, then I would ask you to think about, could I make changes to the amount of food that I'm eating? Because we have a lot of very knowledgeable people about nutrition coming into our practice, but it's a lot to do with portion size management that we tend to have to put into place with people. Sometimes it's as simple as really shifting how you plate and think about your overall meal balance at supper, in terms of having half a plate veggies, a quarter plate starchy grain kind of foods, and a quarter plate of the plate protein. Because what we find, if you're more of a carb junkie, similar to how I would probably naturally eat if I was left up to no thought about my nutrition, I'd probably have a half a plate of carbs and starchy foods because I love the taste of those things. And maybe I'd have a quarter plate protein and a quarter plate veggies. And so strategically thinking about shifting that plate into that half a plate veggies is going to be really key if you're someone that loves carbohydrates. On the other token, we meet a lot of meatitarians in our practice as well. And so if you love larger servings of protein-based options, what you might want to think about is, how do I get that back down to about a quarter of my plate? And again, making sure that a half of my plate is full of good veggies. So those are a couple of just like basic portion size things you may have heard before, but definitely something we see day to day in our practice on a regular basis. Thinking about the next side of could you make changes to the amount of food that you're eating, I'd like you to think about the serving size of the plates and the bowls and the snack packages that you're buying, because all of these things cue us to eat maybe sometimes more than we actually need. And that's because our eyes are much more in charge of how much we eat than our stomach. So sometimes we call this the seafood diet. What we see is what we eat. And so we want to fill up your eyes to allow more satisfaction into a meal. And that means, yes, choosing a smaller plate to put your dinner on it will mean your eyes are more full looking at that plate than having space on an extra large dinner plate. And the same thing happens when we think about the size of your cereal bowl in the morning, or the size of your oatmeal bowl, or what you might scoop out ice cream into. So as someone that loves ice cream, you can imagine I'd prefer to put my ice cream in a large soup bowl, but we know I'm going to dish out way more psychologically. They've done studies on this. In a larger bowl, we're just naturally going to scoop up more because we like to see things full. So instead, if you choose a much smaller bowl and the ice cream is, brimming over the top, our eyes see this as being, this portion is going to be more sufficient and more filling because it's full and there's not a lot of empty space. So a couple of tips there on thinking about portion sizes is how do I buy, how do I serve things, and just my overall look of just being really mindful and aware of where your portion sizes are coming from. Again, I always find it very interesting when we ask our clients coming to see us, when we're checking in on what they're eating and kind of in that first session of assessment, quantities of food. Oftentimes people will say, I eat 1 cup of whether this is rice or cereal or mashed potatoes or berries. And I've noticed that there's an infamous 1 cup that could range anywhere between 1/4 of a cup sometimes for our clients with really strained and disordered relationship with food, all the way up to some of our clients just not really having much sense as to portion sizes. The 1 cup is actually more like 2 cups. So there's something about this 1 cup I know that can vary and range so much that I encourage you to just kind of revisit, like, where am I at when I look at the volume of food that I'm eating? Is there changes to the quantity that I'm eating that might help me shift this overall last few pounds? Because sometimes it's not necessarily changing your diet in a huge revolutionary overhaul. It's really looking at what you're currently doing and shifting and tweaking those portion sizes just subtly, because it's what you do every single day that adds up to be a big thing. It's not really what happens on Friday night when you're having friends over for cocktails that's as significant as the day-to-day patterns that you're having in your breakfast, lunch, and supper portion sizes. So a couple of things there around portion size management. So last thing I wanted to cover here as we debate this topic around, is there a way to help you lose these last stubborn 5 pounds, is I want to have a chat a little bit about realistic expectations and why this is so important. What we know about the science of weight management, and so much of the science of why we weigh what we weigh, is still actually being studied and unfolded. There's a massive amount of research trying to solve the obesity-based epidemic that is facing the world. And some of it we know, of course, is related to changes in nutrition. And yes, changes in nutrition can make a difference, but only up until a point. And that's because weight loss is not just a matter of calories in versus calories out. And this, belief, I would say, in the fitness and diet industry that you could weigh whatever you want if you only ate less and exercise. Well, this is actually the biggest myth we could possibly think about when we look at the science of nutrition and the science of overall weight management. We know that you simply can't at some point eat less, and you simply can't exercise more and pick a number on a scale and weigh just that. We'll get to a certain point, but at some point we just can't bring it any lower and exercise more. Otherwise, we're in a full-fledged eating-based disorder. So I want to give you the sense that just like we have different shoe sizes, we all have different body sizes. And some of us are lean burning machines, and some of us are supposed to be a little bit more round and curvy. And just really thinking about, how would I position this concept and this discussion around weight if I was trying to teach a 10-year-old to be okay in their skin? And that's the same sort of loving kindness, that sort of warm approach to body acceptance that I want you to start thinking about trying to offer yourself. Oftentimes, so many of us we're our own worst critics. Many of us are perfectionistic, myself included, in the way that we approach so many things. I can be my worst critic when it comes to meeting a deadline or not achieving something that I wanted to do at work here, or beating myself up about not being the best mom. But at the end of the day, we have to take into accommodation that we just want to bring our best self forward. And when it comes to the concept of talking about weight loss and these last stubborn 5 pounds that you may or may want to continue trying to lose, I want you to think about, is it really necessary and is it really possible for me to live a balanced life, not loaded with tons of restriction and disorder-based exercise and eating patterns that really aren't serving yourself or maybe role modeling the best habits for your family. So some of you watching this video, I know, will never go there because you've got lots of room in your diet and your activity that you need to make some changes, and there's plenty of opportunity to make change. So that's fantastic. I hope even a couple of little hints today helped that. And for those of you that are already eating like a total nutritional rock star, exercising regularly, I want you to hear the message that what in your life is going to change if you lost that last infamous 5 pounds. I would suggest you're still going to be the same person, and most people probably won't even notice. It's really going to be sort of more finding that place within yourself, just to be a little bit more compassionate. If you're already doing a good job, sometimes the ability to let go and have conversations with our clients around self-acceptance is some of the most important discussions that we can have in our office. So, I'm Andrea Hallwegner, registered dietitian and CEO of HealthStand Nutrition. I'm hoping today I gave you a couple of little tidbits that were helpful around this discussion around losing the infamous last 5 pounds. Love to know in the comments your experience with this, what your thoughts were on listening to the video here. And if you found this helpful, I'd love you to share it. Like the post, share it on your feed so more people can kind of get a sense for whether this is reasonable and possible. And if it was, a couple of different ways you might start going about the process around weight management. So if you're trying to sort out what the best, nutrition plan or diet is going to be, we don't like the word diet in our practice. We like to think of nutrition change as lifestyle. So if you'd like to read more about all of our thinking at HealthStand around weight management, healthy meal planning, but never with any extreme guilt-ridden, extreme limiting types of nutrition plans, then join us over on our website. You can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. We spend lots of time on the content that we create there for articles, healthy eating, recipes, videos, all sort of stuff there. Encourage you to join our newsletter list, which you can sign up for right on our website. It's healthstandnutrition.com. And if you wanted to read more about this particular topic, right in the comments or the written portion of this video section, you're going to see a link where you can get a printable of everything key concepts that I talked about here on this article. And of course, if we can help you on a personal level or with a family member, the team of dietitians here at HealthStand Nutrition all share a similar philosophy to me about balanced, not clean living. Always finding the balance is what we're after and helping you get the nutritious foods into your diet, but never in an extreme punishing sort of way, because life still has to include some chocolate and potato chips and all of our favorite foods. So that's the concept that we work from here. So if we can help you with any nutrition counseling, certainly give our office a call. I'd be happy to speak with you directly and personally about what's going on with your health, and then fit you with the best member on our team for some additional support. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time, same place, for my next nutrition video. Thanks so much. Bye.